And good morning, Hoosier Nation, and welcome to a very defeated, very tough to get up for, Mommy Do I Have To edition of Hoosier Morning After. This is Hoosier Morning After Nebraska. Last night, your Indiana Hoosiers go on to fall apart in the second half, losing to Nebraska, a team that seems to like to hit every single basket they can, even with Tobanaka gone, when they play Indiana, losing 85-68, taking IU's record to 8-3 on the season, 1-1 in the BigTen. Final score really, for me, doesn't tell the whole story. Just crazy tough start to the game with one of our leading scorers getting those two quick early fouls in under 40 seconds. Nebraska showing us what would really kind of be the theme of the game, just hitting everything they could, getting off to a quick 10-point lead. After, I will say, a good Woodson timeout, IU would find some rhythm on the offensive side, getting two steals from Miles Rice, and IU taking and hitting some great threes in the rotation, passing out, would bring the game to a lead change trade-off for kind of the rest of the half. IU would get up by 4, and then Nebraska would hit a 3 or a contested 3, a late 3, or push Ballo over. And in my mindset, those stretches with the crazy fouls and IU just kind of kept IU from getting any sort of rhythm in that first half, with Mbako being out as well, kept the crowd into it and everything. Really didn't allow IU to get up into any sort of double-digit lead or take the crowd out of it. And then the second half started with a Nebraska surge, and then Miles Rice was the only one on the Indiana team in the middle of that second half that stood up and said, no, this isn't going to happen. And he went on an 11-4 scoring run just on his own against Nebraska. Unfortunately, no one went along with him, and IU by that point was just deflated. 9 minutes left in the game. Nebraska was feeling it, hitting everything they could, and finished the game on a 19-5 run. What a tough one. Really a show that really tests the theme of this show, to have the night to sleep on it. Obviously a late game, so not much of a sleep, and really a tough one to look at. I'm your host, Chad Schwartzkopf. Here with me is Martha the Mop Lady. Martha, sorry to drag you out of bed this morning on a great Saturday to have to talk about this one. What are your thoughts starting off?
At this point, just looking for anything to, this show, we've talked long at length about how it gives us a moment to take a deep breath and try to find some positivity. And while we can certainly do that in last night's game, it's just we're getting to a point now where we've got to find something to hang our hat on, right? I mean, when we look at this season and with where we ended last season, right? It was kind of a prove it to me type attitude going into this season, and nothing's been proved yet. We're winning the games at home that we should win. I mean, those are no brainers, but that gray area of go win on a neutral court, go play good on the road, the stuff that's hindered this program since Mike Woodson has taken over, we've not improved in one area. Talent might have improved, but the execution has not. And specifically on the defensive end last night was absolutely atrocious. Nebraska is not a good offensive team. They haven't been a good offensive team this season leading up to this game, and we made them look like the 95 Bulls. And we can get more into that, but it's not the first time it's happened this season. If you go back and look at teams we've played, teams get good open looks at us consistently all the time. And until we figure out how to play good defense against good teams, especially away from Assembly Hall, we stand no chance. And that's the concerning thing, is there's never any sort of adjustments. It's just there's stats that we'll get into, but with specific lineups and what percentages Nebraska was shooting leading into this game compared to what they shot against us last night. And if you look at the last 4 times we've played Nebraska, clearly Fred Hoiberg knows how to attack Indiana. And you would think at some point, okay, we've struggled against Nebraska 3 out of the last 3 games. They've beaten us by 15 plus points. Let's adjust how we play them defensively. But it is the same sad story of overhelping 2 bigs that can't guard the 3-point line. It's frustrating. It is frustrating. There is enough talent on this team that they should be playing better. And right now, I talk to people in my circle. There is no interest in watching this program right now, it gets lower and lower every single game. It's a painful watch. Nothing is changing. And until it does, this is going to be the attitude around it. It is a difficult watch right now. And until, I don't know, it's just frustrating because I feel like we're talking in circles. We were promised all this talent was going to change, yet here we are, having the same conversations that we were a year ago. And it's really, really frustrating. Back to you, Chad.
Yeah. I mean, it comes down to consistency. It's been the biggest issue for Indiana for years now. The ups and downs this team shows is just becoming exhausting. We move and run great plays and stretches, and then have a second half like that and look completely lost. Can't even get it into the paint and everything like that. And again, there is a lot of hat tipping you can do to Nebraska because they have found our number. Hoiberg has done some great coaching, and again, that is some argument in the other way. Again, I'm not in practices. I'm not there to see if the plan is right and the coaches and the guys aren't executing, or if the plan is just wrong. But it's just like you said, the talent is there, and the lack of defense is tough to see. And we have seen an evolution of the defense as the season has gone on, where they were playing a lot more of that traditional nail slot rim, sagging off, defending the drive. Recently, we've seen a little bit more. Obviously, they've realized that hasn't been working, so they've gotten away from that and been a little bit more just helping on the ball and relying on Ballo if drives do get passed, and trying to stay out on shooters, but that's been not complete the whole way. So it's an execution question, maybe. The one thing I will say, at least finishing this within a positive, is I will say at least I felt like the effort was there from a good amount of guys. This wasn't a Bahamas level lack of effort in it. It felt more scheme orientated in this, and where IU in the first half, maybe this will be a good transition. I'll skip lower in my notes. I was planning on talking about this later, but IU in the first half was playing a lot through the bigs and getting a lot of stuff going with the bigs. 14 or 17 points total with Ballo and Malik in the first half, and then just 3 points from them in the second half. You could see Hoiberg and Nebraska was game planned against that, because immediately when passes went to the bigs, first half and second half, the double was right there, right on their shoulder immediately when they looked to turn. And the rotation was good for the most part. In the first half, IU was able to find the shooters out of that double and make some points, but they struggled in the second half. Any thoughts you have on our bigs in this game and maybe that discussion?
I mean, there's certainly something to be said with, IU got behind pretty early, and I think at that point there was concern that this game was, I think it was 13-3 to start the game, right? And how is Indiana gonna weather that storm? And I thought they were really resilient to start the game, and how they bounced back and made some adjustments. And I think a lot of us did feel good going into halftime, and part of that was the play of our bigs and being able to bounce back. But for everything I think that they gave us on the offensive end, I think that it was a struggle defensively, and I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was Tony Adranja made a post about what our defense was like with those two bigs on the court, and I've got it bookmarked here. I'm going to try to find it, but it's just concerning. And I'll come back to it because I lost it, but yeah, we're just not good enough defensively with them on the court. For everything they give us offensively, we're not able to defend wide open shots with them. They can't rotate quick enough. We overhelp, and then people are getting wide open looks. So, yeah, I like the way we started, but again, it's just we end up giving up too much defensively the more they're on the court together.
Yeah, one at least bright spot that we had in the second half that I spoke about earlier was Miles Rice, that monstrous second half moment that he had, getting IU back into it. 20 points for him on the game, 8 for 13, 1 for 4, 3 for 4 from the line, 1 assist, 3 turnovers, 4 steals. Really kind of that stat line. We see 2 different stat lines from him when we see games, either a high assist, low point scoring, or high point scoring, low assist. Obviously, that second half surge that he had was a lot of those. It's the 4 steals that were great. And I think there was great moments in this game where he obviously impacted the game. That stretch in the second half, and then those 2 quick steals in the first half when IU was down 10, like you said, really kind of helped turn the tide and give us hope to begin in this game. Jen in the chat, obviously, Jennifer missed the first half, and you missed some good moments in that regard. Maybe go back and watch that and then just turn it off. But thought it was a decent game for him. Your kind of maybe thoughts speaking on Miles.
Yeah, I think if somebody tells you, especially after Atlantis, right? If somebody tells you that Miles Rice goes for 20 points and there's a stretch in the second half where he scores 13 straight points, I think you feel pretty good about Indiana's chances, right? I think that it speaks more about kind of the struggles around him than it does him. He was everything Indiana needs him to be. Getting up and down the court. Those 13 straight points were impressive. I think despite Indiana's poor shooting, he was the one bright spot. And if you recall, like those 13 straight points, there was a point there towards the end of that where Indiana was down a point with less than 7 minutes to play. And then unfortunately, I think Nebraska ends the game on a 17-1 run, which is a whole nother story. But he's the reason we're in that game down the stretch, right? And obviously the score got away from us. Ends up being a pretty ugly looking loss, but it was close with under 7 minutes to play. And I think a lot of that was because of Miles Rice. So it was nice to see him play like that. If there's anything that one bright spot we want to look at, I think it's him. And I can't quit on the season, right? I think it's way too early to do that, but he's the one that we said, if he gets going, look out, and he's getting going. Unfortunately, everybody else around him was pretty rough. So good to see. Obviously we're getting into conference season, so there's going to be a lot more opportunities for him to continue to play like that, and hopefully others around him play better so we can start getting some quality wins.
And the other guard to kind of really look at after a monstrous game in the last one is Carlisle. Kind of came off that big game. I feel like in this game, offensively at least, he really kind of forced it for IU. It was finished with only 2 points, 1 for 7 from the field, 0 for 5 from 3. Felt like he was really kind of chucking those threes up at one point, not in the best rhythm at all. However, looking at his stats, you see that he has the highest plus minus at a plus 10 for IU. That's only out of 13 minutes because of the foul trouble that he got into. But I think that is indicative of the impact that he gave this team on the defensive end. A few of the players on Nebraska's team on the offensive side really like to try to play that drive bully ball or getting underneath. And Carlisle is definitely our best on-ball defender. And with his size and his strength, doesn't give into that and doesn't foul much. Obviously, again, he got 3 fouls, so he got in a little bit of foul trouble, but that's really kind of what Nebraska's game is. If you paid attention during this game, they look to the foul line. They look to create that contact and get those calls. So you see that a lot in this game, and I noticed once I turned my brain onto that, I couldn't not see it a lot of times, them trying to draw those fouls. But again, I think he needed to see a little more time, needed a little bit longer leash, allow him to foul out, because on the defensive end, while he was slightly detrimental to IU on the offensive side, we needed him on the defensive side. Your thoughts on Carlisle?
Yeah, I see. I mean, I see both sides, right? I think for me, it's tough to give one. You had trouble staying on the court because of foul trouble. It's tough to give anybody on this team defensive credit when Nebraska was scoring at the clip that they were, and I certainly understand what you were saying. While he was out there, he was probably the best perimeter defender. Unfortunately, he couldn't stay on the court, and for everything that he gave us on the defensive end, Nebraska's defensive style is to pack the paint and dare you to shoot. And going 1 for 7 and 0 for 5 does nothing to help your team. And he's just been way too inconsistent on the offensive end for Indiana all season. Came in with I think an all conference player from his previous school, and just hasn't shown that at all at Indiana yet. And again, new face. I get it, but yeah, it's just way too much inconsistency from Carlisle. 1 for 7, 0 for 5. That's just not getting it done. And I know Woody at times has pointed to all the new faces, and it's tough because, and you've seen the comparisons, right, wrong, fair, not fair, but pointing across the parking lot to the football program, they had nothing but new faces. And for me, it comes down to discipline and execution. And that's what, while Indiana football might not have always been the most talented team out there, they were really good at the little things, the fundamentals, not penalizing themselves, not putting themselves in poor positions, executing when they needed to. And Indiana basketball just does not do that. And so the new faces thing, that excuse is getting old. And I think Carlisle's indicative of that. He just needs to play better. He's got the talent. I don't know if it's between the ears, but we just need more from him offensively. I thought the defense was fine, but it's pretty irrelevant when you can't stay on the court. So I thought it was overall a pretty frustrating game from him.
Yeah. And I'm going to lean on that to the sense of, if you're not going to play him that much and he's at least impacting the game that way, put him out there a little bit longer.
I agree.
Let him foul out.
Let him foul out. Yeah.
Let him foul out.
Yeah. What's it going to hurt if he's your best defender?
You've already fouled him out by putting him on the bench and not playing him, basically, which is always an aggravating thing. At least the bright spot that I do want to talk about was Luke Goody. Just the effort, man. Put a big E for effort on his jersey. Just a great game from him in that stance. Goes 3 for 10 from the field, which actually translates exactly over to the 3-point field goals. Is 3 for 10, 9 points for him. 4 rebounds, 3 fouls. He stayed aggressive and everything too. Obviously, defending is not his greatest suit, and like I said, Nebraska looks to draw those fouls, so that's going to happen on their drives like that. But just the effort, and that can easily be summed up in that one play where there was a stolen ball and he's running back after a very athletic Williams on their team, and comes from behind, is able to get up there and affect and block his shot, his dunk attempt. Just great effort from him. Like to see that, like seeing the volume going up. I think he took some a little forced threes in the second half. But overall, kind of what you look to get from him. And I'm obviously fine him taking 10 3-pointers. That's what he should be doing when he's out there. Your thoughts on Luke?
If I'm reading the box score correctly, the only shots he took were 3-pointers.
Yes.
3 for 10. So I don't know that's. I mean, that's kind of taking what the defense gave you. But again, I think need a little bit more. I mean, he's better than a 30% 3-point shooter. He had some open looks late in the game that for a guy that's been around as long as him, you need one of those. I do really, really appreciate what he brings from a leadership standpoint, from an effort standpoint. So there's appreciation there, right? He comes off, at least from a body language standpoint, as a guy that's really invested and cares. And I'm not saying the others don't, but we saw Eclipse in Atlantis. We saw the effort last night. You read it on social media from other media outlets that Luke Goody's just busting his butt out there, and so you put some solace in that. Just you want to see it on the offensive end too, right? I think he could have gotten Indiana across the finish line by knocking down a couple of those 3-pointers, and I hate to just single him out, but there was that one stretch in the game where I think Indiana was within one or four, somewhere in there, but he had a couple wide open looks that just didn't drop that were pretty big misses. So again, he's another one of those guys that just you got to start knocking down some of those threes at a higher clip to give IU a chance. But I will give him when you certainly don't see it across the board that defensively he's flying all around the place. He's just continuously engaged. So I've got some appreciation there. Again, just another, need some of those threes to start falling, and I think they will.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We'll shift slightly over to stats. I know you may need to be getting going here early, but I want to get your input on some of these. And it's very interesting because there were some stats in this game that we have been pounding on all this year about getting better and seeing them, and they come with caveats though in this. Obviously, one of the big ones was rebounds. There were a few games where IU just looked unengaged on the glass and not putting a body and not looking for it, allowing themselves to get boxed out. And this was a game where IU had really great offensive rebounding, 15 offensive rebounds, but just 10 points off those rebounds. That 11 of those rebounds came in the second half when IU needed them the most and needed the most attempts at the basket. So the things were there, the rebounds were there. That's at least a positive to look at, but they were unable to capitalize on it. So maybe that's a good thing to look at in those regards. Obviously, as well, the other one, the big glaring one, is the 3-point shooting. IU took 35, only made 8 of them. First half, they looked a little bit better. They were taken in rhythm of the offense in second half. It just looked like we were just throwing them at it, trying to get anything. But that has to do, obviously, with the greater larger idea of how off the offense lacked, and we weren't running consistent plays, and getting it inside really affected that as well. And then turnovers as well in single digits for IU at 9. So some good stats to look at as far as that points, but some caveats to those. Your thoughts on either those stats or any other stats in this game?
Yeah, I think the bright spot is Indiana just turning the ball over on 13% of their possessions. That was a season best. Again, you lead with some of these. You're like, okay, Miles Rice goes off for 20. Indiana has a low turnover percentage. They rebounded more than a third of their misses, I think, but they ended up missing those second chance shots as well, like you mentioned. So some of those stats were good, but then you look at the bad. It's like, last night was the first time Nebraska shot better than 60% from the floor in a conference game since February 3rd, 2015, almost 10 years ago. And then you start going into some of the stats. So in another one, and I found that Adranya tweet that I mentioned, Indiana played 15 possessions with 2 bigs tonight. They gave up 2 points per possession. They were outscored 30-12 with Ballo and Renew playing together. Yeah. So it's tough for those two guys to defend anything anybody that's not big. And unfortunately, Nebraska is going to throw a lineup of shooters at us, which is exactly what they did. Yeah, it's just the defensive stats just jump out to me. Obviously, we can talk about the missed 3-point shots. all we want. We just have to be better there. Nebraska's going to allow you to shoot the three. You've got to be able to knock down some of those shots, right? Did we shoot too many? Maybe, but we continue to have good looks, right? And we've been begging them to shoot more threes all season, or not all season, but for since Mike Woodson's been here. But giving up for the last 4 games, we've given up 85, 93, 85, and 86 to Nebraska. That's embarrassing. Nebraska they made the tournament maybe one time out of those 4 years. They're not a good team. They're well coached. I think Fred Hoiberger is a great coach, and he knows how to attack Indiana's weaknesses. But I think it speaks more for our inability to make adjustments, our inability to be good defensively, be good at the little things, and it's kind of a microcosm of everything that's been frustrating for this fan base is what we saw last night, just the inability to make any sort of adjustment. And now you don't have an opportunity for a quality win. I think you've got Winthrop and some other team at home before you get back into Big Ten play. And now you've got to start. I mean, you really have no quality win on the schedule right now. And when you start to look at the body of work, we're in the same predicament we were last year. Right now, if you start to look at bracketology, we're already on the outside looking in. Last 4 in or last 4 out, I think. This probably pushes us out, and now you start to look at the Big Ten schedule. Are there opportunities there? Sure. But, there's very little room for error, right? You can't slip up at home. You can't start losing to teams you shouldn't at home. I mean, you've got to almost start being perfect in the games you need to be. And that's a big ask for a program that's shown the inability to do that. So I've got concern. That doesn't mean I don't have any hope. I mean, I'm always I'm always going to have hope, right? I want this team to be successful. I want this program to be successful. It gets hard, right? Because, and I've always appreciated this about you, Chad, is you've always been able to find that positive side, and it's getting harder and harder to do. And I know you feel the same way. It's getting old just sitting here talking about the same things over and over and over. So a lot of season left. I think just continue to find those little pieces of hope, and man, hopefully we just find a way to get some big wins and turn this thing around.
Yep. I know you got to bounce on me here in a second, but I just want you to do one more thing before we go. As we like to pitch on this show for the Hoosier Ticket Project, where to go to donate your tickets, I'm actually going to shift that. Tell them about how you can go on Hoosier Ticket Project, because I think there's going to be plenty of tickets there, and nominate someone to go to a game. Tell them about that.
Yeah, that's it's always. I love receiving ticket donations, and we will accept every single ticket. We love sending people to games, but there's always a side of it too that's kind of indicative on how a particular season's going. And like when you look at football this season, for the last 4 home games, we maybe received 8 tickets total. And when you look at the previous year, there were games where we were receiving close to 100 tickets for a home football game. So how that has shifted, and now you go into this basketball season, and donations are way up. Now we haven't hit conference season, at least not the big portion of the home season yet, and we don't have that big marquee home game. So we always take that into consideration. But the donations are certainly up, which we appreciate. We have sent more people to games this year, more deserving people to games this year. Probably more total than we did all of last year, which is awesome. But along with that is the importance of getting the word out about us. So to your point, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk about it, the need for us to find quality recipients. We're trying to partner with local organizations, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Boys and Girls Club, places like that. We're branching up to Indianapolis. But finding good, solid homes for ticket takers, because we want to place as many of them as we can. We need those nominees, and if you know of anybody that would be a good send, go to our website, HoosierTicketProject.org, nominate them, and we would be happy to pair them with some tickets. Because to your point, we're probably going to see an increase in donations, so we want to send as many folks as we can. So thank you, Chad, for allowing me to talk about that.
Yep. Yep. Thank you, Martha. And if you want, hang up. I'm going to try to finish and lead in with some hope here as we get going. And
Love it. Thanks, Chad. I appreciate you, and we'll continue that hope. And I know we don't have a home game for a while, so the next big event is the Indiana football game next Friday. So hopefully by the next time we're talking, we'll also be able to talk a little bit about the second round playoff game, right? So
yeah.
Appreciate you, bud.
Right.
Talk soon.
Thanks, buddy. Talk to you later. And that's a good way to start the hope. Look at the hope that we have. Look at the next thing that we have for Indiana athletics to look at is that football game. So that's so exciting. That's energizing for not only Indiana as a university, but Indiana as a state to have this college state championship game. I love that it's been touting as that to look forward to. But for this basketball team, yes, it is hard to find that hope. It is hard to tune in every time and to get up and talk about it like Martha and I do when things just don't seem like they're going right. But I try to hope and look for the positives that we see in each game. And there are guys that are fighting for this team. I want to look at the things that we have had issues with going into this type of game, and it's been effort. And we have found an effort leader in what we have with Luke Goody. He has been that injection of energy for IU coming off the bench and shooting the three a lot more, shooting it more confidently, hitting some of those long ones. That trailing one that he had at the top of the key early in the game was beautiful to see. Guys are more engaged on the offensive side. They're hitting those, getting those rebounds, going after them, giving us all the chances we can. Obviously, we're not hitting those. We're not nailing those as much as possible as we should. The positive that we at least have going forward is we don't play again until next Saturday, December 21st. It's a noon game against Chattanooga. IU gets a chance to kind of, again, look at the tape, see where things were wrong, and game plan a little bit better. The Big Ten is a tough conference. It's a tough conference to play in. It's one of the toughest ones to play on the road. And tip of the cap to Nebraska. Their coaching staff did a hell of a job getting them prepared for this. They were coming in energized after losing to Michigan State and were looking to have a bounce back game at home. And that's what they did with this IU team. They game planned well. They doubled the bigs, took them out of the equation, especially in the second half. IU had a lot of good effort to try to stay in it in the first half, especially. But it was grit and home environment and the energy that their fans and their student section gave them that gave them that extra juice for those acrobatic late clock shot, contested shots to go in for them. And it's unfortunate that it rolled that way for IU, but it did. And it's tough to try to look at the schedule as an uphill battle now. And like Martha said, it is. We don't have that quality hang your hat win on this resume for Indiana right now. But the opportunities are there. The season is not over. And when I say that phrase, how does that affect you? When I say the words, the season is not over, are you looking at it going, oh, dang it, the season is not over, and that you have to suffer through more? Or do you look at it and say the season is not over? These guys have a chance to find it. They have a chance to extend those good moments that we've seen, that good play that we've seen, the good three-point shot taking, the open threes, the passing out of the paint, the too big lineup to have moments of working when those guys are great at the high-low. The moments of Luke Goody or Carlisle coming off the bench and lighting it up are still there. Of Miles Rice having a game where he is either shooting it lights out or is just shredding up the opponent's defense, driving to the basket, dishing it out, getting high up there in the assist range. To see Trey Galloway continue to hit threes at a clip that we used to see him and the glory days, and continue to be that great defender for IU on the other side. To see young guys with pure confidence like a Bryson Tucker, come in with confidence and then just hit ridiculous shots, be acrobatic, be the goldfish again that he is, and just continue to make fantastic plays for IU, be that Troy Williams. To have Mackenzie Mbako, just another freak athlete for IU, come in as well, make his threes, carve up guys, come around on those horns plays, and get his long twos. Obviously, something that we don't like as IU fans, but something that happens. To see those great moments as well. We had one moment in this game of Trey Galloway driving to the basket on some great screenplay with Ballo and lobbed it and knocked it down. We've seen other moments of IU getting out on the offensive side in transition, playing with some speed, getting some amazing alley-oops, getting some great dunks. Shoot, Tucker even had maybe second on the list, just behind Victor Oladipo's missed dunk against Michigan as the second best missed dunk in IU history, where he tried to crank it back and throw it down aggressively into the basket. So yeah, am I being optimistic? Am I looking with rosy glasses? Is this too positive? Is this too shiny? Is this too on the bright side when things feel like they're falling apart? Sure, you can say that. You can argue that, but this is where I decide to sit. This is the chair I decide to sit in. This is the bed I've decided to make because it feels better for me. Is it copium? Am I drinking the Kool-Aid? Are there other things that I am looking past to feel this way? Sure. Why not? But this is how I choose to be a Hoosier, and who I choose to be as a fan of Hoosier Nation. I choose to tune in hoping for the best, not tune in and hope for the worst and hope to see him fail and hope to see that there's the rewards and we finally get rid of that coach and everything. Because that's more painful. That's a more painful way to tune into these games and try to watch these games and be a fan of this sport. I want to lead with the positive. I want to lead with hope. I argue you to do the same. You don't have to. You don't have to listen to me. You can hate everything that I have just said. You can burn the rose garden that I just tried to put in front of you if you would like. But this is how I want to sit and where I want to be as a Hoosier. So I invite you to put on these glasses with me and try to ride on this road with me. And that, I think, is all I can give you for now in this game. Because if I dwell on it too much more and I do anymore, it's just going to hurt. So for now, IU, let's be goldfish. Let's forget about this game. Let's move on and be excited about this football game that's coming to us. And let's choose not to, if we come off on the bad end of that football game as well, look back to the positives that we've had in this football game. In this football season, I should say, overall. And the great skies we have moving forward for that. But thank you for tuning in with me. Thank you for listening to me rant about that being positively. And I appreciate you. Follow me on Twitter at General Chadwick. Watching on YouTube, please hit that thumbs up. Hit that subscribe. We'll see you next time, next week, and hopefully on greener skies. Until then, go out there, have yourself a wonderful day, and let's go Hoosiers.